I made every excuse in the book as to why I was not being able to overcome the price objection and close a lot more deals, like the leads are bad, or people are cheap, or they just don't see the value, and everything else that was not outside my control. Until my friend pointed it out and asked me, "Hey Sakin, did you ever consider the possibility that you just suck?" And that is when I realized I actually probably do suck. And I spent the next 2 years of my life dedicating myself to finding out exactly how to overcome the price objection, but more importantly, how to actually prevent it from showing up in the first place. And that is exactly what I'll be telling you in the next 5 or 10 minutes. This is not going to be a video where I tell you to memorize some lines so that you're finally going to be able to close a lot more deals. I'm not going to do that. What I will do is I will tell you exactly why the price objection happens in the first place and what to do before and during your sales call to prevent the price objection from even showing up towards the end of the call. Does this mean that every single lead that you talk to, every single sales call you hop on, does this mean that you're never going to receive a price objection? Probably not. There's still going to be some people out there who are going to throw a price objection at you no matter what. But if you do everything that I'm going to be telling you in the next 5 or 10 minutes, you are going to significantly reduce the number of price objections you get, and you're going to be able to close a lot more deals. And the reason I know this works is because I've been doing this for the last 2 years myself. I have been asked by multiple companies to come and train their reps and help them build their sales team and help them close a lot more as well. And I've been doing the same thing across all of these companies, and that has significantly helped them increase their sales as well, which I'm going to show you proof in just a second. But with that being said, let's not waste any more time. Let's get started. So first things first, what we're going to focus on is we're going to focus on building a sales structure just like this. That is going to help you prevent a lot of price objection from even showing up in the first place. And this is something that I built for myself. I also built for a lot of my clients as well, where I was training and building their sales teams. And obviously I've helped this client and this client and this client. He collected $87,000 in cash collected, $57,000 in cash collected, and $0 to $18,000 in 1.5 months. There's also a bunch of proof here. You can pause the video and just go through all of these if you want, but I don't want to focus too much on this. I want to focus on exactly what we need to do to prevent price objection from even showing up in the first place, which is what I promised you at the beginning of this video. So let's talk about that. So price objection happens for 3 reasons. Price objection happens because there's not enough urgency, or because someone doesn't think our product is valuable. How do you spell valuable? Valuable. Or our prospect doesn't trust us. These are the 3 reasons why price objection even happens in the first place. And I'll give you the perfect example here. When it comes to urgency, if let's say we go for the extreme example of someone's parent being in hospital and they need to come up with $20,000 to pay medical bills, right? If this was the case, if your prospect had to pay $20,000 for medical bills for one of their family members or their spouse or their children, whatever, they're going to do whatever it takes to come up with $20,000 because it is urgent. They need to solve this problem as soon as possible. Otherwise, God forbid, something might happen to their parents or something might happen to their spouse or their children, whatever. There's a lot of urgency in this situation, which is why they're going to do whatever it takes to come up with the 20K. If the prospect is not paying us 3, 4, 5K, 10K, whatever you charge, if they're not paying us that means they don't have enough urgency around their own problems to be able to justify paying whatever you're charging. And obviously, I'm going to tell you exactly how to create urgency, make your product seem a lot more valuable, and make your prospect trust you a lot more as well. So don't even worry about that. But that is one of the biggest reasons why prospects don't pay us, because they don't have a lot of urgency to solve their problem. Second thing is valuable. They just don't see your product as valuable enough. They just don't see it as something that's going to help them solve their problem. And value is always created. Value is created when a problem is solved. So the prospects hop on a sales call with us because they feel like we can help them solve their problem, right? So if they're not willing to pay us, they just don't feel like our product or service can help them solve their problem, which is a big problem. Because if the prospect does not feel like we can help them solve their problem, it doesn't matter if you charge $10, $1,000, or even $10,000. They're not going to be spending a dime with you. See, the problem with most salespeople is that they talk about what they do and not how they can solve the prospect problem, which is there's a huge distinction right there. They talk about what they do, their product or service, the features, the benefits, all that good stuff, instead of focusing on how they can solve the prospect's problem. And this is something, again, we're going to go very deep into exactly what to do to make your product seem a lot more valuable, which in the first place, it should be valuable. If your product is not valuable, then I can't give you tricks or tips to like manipulate your prospect. Your product should already be valuable. I'm only going to talk about how to make your product seem even more valuable, like a no-brainer. That's the second thing. Third thing is a prospect does not trust us. So again, we might have a friend, we might have a family member, we might have someone else that we really trust that we're willing to pay money to. Let's say Alex Hermosi. He was able to, with his book launch, get thousands of people to pay him $6,000 because people trusted him, because he's built trust with his prospects over the years. So if our prospects are not willing to spend 3, 4, 5K, 10K with our product or service, they just don't trust us. And we're going to talk about exactly how to build trust with our prospects as well. But let's start from the top. Let's start with urgency. So the way to create urgency on a sales call, so the prospect has no choice but to actually pay you what you're charging, is for the prospect to have more awareness around their own problems. And I'll give you an example. Let's say a prospect feels like they're struggling with sales, right? They need more help with sales because they're not able to close a lot more deals, which might be why you're watching this video. If on a sales call, I only show the prospect that they have a sales problem, and then I try and pitch my product or service, they are most likely not going to buy. They're most likely going to give me a price objection. Why? Because they don't have a lot of awareness around their own problem. They don't know the severity of the problem, and they also don't know the consequences to not solving that problem. So these are all things that we need to establish within our prospects during the discovery to prime them for a close. So here's exactly how to do this. So with the previous example, the prospect who feels like he has a sales problem, if during the discovery, I help him uncover that his sales problem stems from having an offer problem, which is also why he was getting poor lead flow. That is why he was having a sales problem. Now he has a lot more awareness around the problem. Now he knows that it's not only a closing issue, it's the fact that his offer sucks, which is why he was getting shitty lead flow. And as a result, he was not able to make a lot more sales. Now he has a lot more awareness around his problem. But we also need to show him the severity of not solving the problem. And we also need to show him the consequences of not solving the problem. Those three combined together is how you create urgency. With the medical example here, the person who has to pay $20,000 in bills, he has urgency because he has awareness around the problem, which is, okay, if I don't pay the bills, my family member might die, God forbid. And he also has, he knows the severity of the problem. Like, oh shit, if I don't pay it in like a week or two, they're not going to be able to go into surgery and they're going to, again, die. And thirdly, he also knows the consequences of not solving the problem, which again, death. And YouTube, by the way, please don't censor my video because I said death. Anyways, yeah, this person has the urgency, he has the awareness, he knows the severity, and he also knows the consequences of not solving the problem. We need to do the same thing with our prospects. So with the sales prospect example, now he has a lot more awareness that he has an offer problem, he also has a lead flow problem. But now we also need to show him the severity of not solving that problem and the consequences to not solving that problem. So with the severity, if we show him that, okay, if we don't start making sales as soon as possible, then we have our competitor down the road who's going to be able to outperform us, who's going to be able to outsell us, and he's going to be able to put us out of business. That is the severity of the problem. If we don't solve this ASAP, we're going to be out of business because we're not going to be able to sign new clients, and they're going to be going to our competitor. So we're going to be out of business very, very soon. That is the severity of the problem. The consequences to not solving this sales issue or the offer issue or the lead flow issue is that if we don't fix this right now and we go out of business, we're not going to be able to provide for our family. We're not going to be able to provide for our wife and our kids. The wife is going to be super unhappy because this is not what she signed up for. The kids are not going to be able to wear, good or nice clothes to school, and they're going to look homeless. And eventually they're going to become homeless, like just an example. But that is the consequence to not solving this problem. If we do, and again, like this is just an example, so obviously use your own judgment when you're talking to your prospect. This is how we create urgency with a prospect. We first of all get them to be a lot more aware. So we create awareness around their problem. Awareness around their problem. We show them the severity of their problem. And lastly, we get them to understand the consequences of not solving the problem. Once the prospect knows all three of these, once they understand and once they have a lot more awareness around their problem, once they understand the severity of their problem, and once they also find out the consequences of not solving this problem, they're going to have a lot more urgency to solve this problem, which means they're going to be willing to pay whatever it takes to solve this problem. That is how you create urgency on a sales call, so that during the later part of the call, when you drop your price, the prospect is actually willing to pay whatever it takes to solve their problem. But that is not going to happen if the prospect does not think your product or service is even valuable. If they feel like your product or service is not going to help them solve all of their problem. Let's take this person as an example. The person who believes that he needs to pay $20,000 in medical bills for his wife or his parents or his children, whatever. He's only going to pay $20,000 for the medical bills at the best hospital. Because if there's a hospital that looks shitty, that looks like it's not even going to be able to save his parents or children or spouse, then he's not going to be willing to spend $20,000 in medical bills and admit his parents or spouse or children in that hospital. He's only going to be willing to spend the $20K on the best hospital with the best medical treatment, right? So our prospect, if they are willing to spend the money, They have to believe that our product or service is the best thing. It is the exact thing that's going to help them solve their problem. So during the discovery process, we obviously find out their pain points, their problems, all that good stuff, right? We know exactly what kind of problems they're facing, what their struggles are, why they've not been able to solve that problem, all of that. But one thing we also have to find out is something that I call a prospect's buying criteria. And I'm going to tell you exactly what buying criteria is. Let's imagine a person or a business owner wants to get to $30,000 per month, right? But they want to get to that point without having to do any cold calling. They want a lot of done for you service instead of done with you or do it yourself. And they also want a lot of one-to-one support instead of group support. That is their buying criteria. But if your product or service can help them get to $30,000 per month, but they have to do a lot of cold calling, there's a lot of done with you or do it yourself, and there's also a lot of group coaching involved, even though you're still being able to get them to their destination, they're still not going to buy from you because it doesn't match their buying criteria. So what we have to do during the discovery, obviously once we've found out their problems, their pain points, why they've not been able to get to their goal, all that good stuff, we also have to find the prospect's buying criteria. Mr. Prospect, I'm confident that we can help you out. I'm confident we can help you solve this problem. I also want you to feel confident that we can help you solve this problem and get you to your goal. Just out of curiosity, when we're going to be working together, what kind of help or support would you need for you to feel like this was a successful partnership? And then have them list down every single thing that they would want in a potential partnership, because that is going to be their buying criteria. With a fitness example, if a prospect says that he wants to become jacked, but he only believes that in order to become jacked, he needs to take supplements. If that is his buying criteria, and we try and sell him a fitness plan, like a fitness program, or workout program, or even steroids, they're not going to buy from us, because even though that will help them get to their destination, that will help them become a lot more jacked, that is not a part of their buying criteria. They only believe to become jacked, you need to take supplements. So once we find a prospect's buying criteria, how exactly does that make our product or service more valuable? How is that going to make the prospect be willing to spend 3, 4, 5, 10K, whatever you charge, with your product or service, or on your product or service? I'll tell you exactly how. So what we have to understand is most salespeople, what they do during their offer part of the call or the presentation part of the call is they talk about what they do and not how they can solve the prospect's problem. And again, I told you this before, this is super important. So if a prospect tells us that during the discovery that they're struggling with, let's say, for example, they're struggling with weight loss and they're struggling with not knowing what kind of meals to cook that's going to be healthy. And they're also struggling with tracking their progress, and they're struggling with, I don't know, let's say they want a lot of personalized one-to-one support. If those are their 4 biggest things, their 4 biggest buying criteria, then during the later part of the call, during our presentation, our offer, if we tell them that we have this app that's going to help them do XYZ, they don't care about that because they can't see how the app is going to help them solve the problem following the buying criteria. So if during our offer or our presentation, we tell the prospect, Mr. Prospect, you told us that you're struggling with weight loss, right? That is exactly why we have a weight loss plan system buster that is going to help you lose 20 pounds in the next 60 days or whatever. Then you also mentioned you don't know exactly what kind of meals to cook that is going to be delicious, but it's also going to help you lose weight as well, which is why we're going to give you 20 different meal plans that you're going to be able to start cooking that is also going to be healthy and is going to be delicious as well. But what you're doing here is you're connecting every single one of their problems to your solution. When you do that with every single one of their problems, following their buying criteria, and you show them how your product or service solves every one of those problems, that is when the prospect feels like your product or service is the best thing out there. It is so valuable because it is solving every single one of the problems that they are currently struggling with. They're going to feel like this product was specifically made for them. That is how you make your product a lot more valuable. Right here. That is, and again, like value is created when a problem is solved. When a prospect tells you all of their problem during the discovery, and you also find out their buying criteria, make a note of that so that during your offer or your presentation, you can show the prospect, Mr. Prospect, you mentioned these 4 problems. Our product or service solves all of these 4 problems for you. Now the prospect has a lot more urgency because we already discovered that during the discovery. The prospect also sees our product as a lot more valuable because we showed them how we solve every single one of their product or every single one of their problems with their product or service. Now the only thing that's left is, even if the prospect feels like there's a lot of urgency, even if the prospect sees our product as super valuable, they have to actually trust us for them to be willing to part with 3, 4, 5, 10K, however much you charge, of their valuable money. Now, how exactly do we get a prospect to trust us? Let's say we trust, who do we trust? We trust friends, we trust family members, and we trust, who's a creator that you watch? Let's say Alex Ramosi, right? We trust Alex Ramosi, for example. Now, friends and family, I get, obviously we trust our friends and family. We're willing to part ways with our money to give money to friends and family. That's all good. But why do people trust Alex Ramosi? It is because he has been providing value for free over the last God knows how many years. And if we reverse engineer every single creator you look up to, let's say Alex Hormozi, or let's say Charlie Morgan, or let's say Iman, like whoever you watch, I don't care. The main point is we have to ask ourselves, why do we trust them so much? Why, if one of these people, if we hopped on a call with one of these people or their teams, we're going to be paying them, right? If you hop on a call with Alex Hormozi's team and he tells you he's going to be able to 3x your business for $30,000, you know for a fact that he's going to be able to help you like 3x your business. Now, the only issue is going to be how do we actually come up with the money? But that's a different issue. You already trust him. Why is that? Why do we trust these creators? It is because they have been providing value and they have been solving our problems for free for God knows how long, for years or even months or like whatever. How can we do the same with our prospects? Obviously, we don't want to be waiting years, right? But how do we use the same concept with our prospects? We can obviously provide free value that solves one of their problems. I'll give you a perfect example for this. With the prospect that we were talking about here, the one who's struggling with weight loss, right? One of their biggest problem was that they didn't know exactly what kind of meals to cook because it's like none of the healthy meals are tasty. They're not delicious. They suck. So how do I actually cook healthy meals that are also delicious? If we have a cookbook and we just give that cookbook to them for free, let's say before they even hop on a sales call with us, they tell us that these are all the things that they're struggling with, and their sales call is, let's say, 2 or 3 days from now. What we can do is we can give them a cookbook for free. That is going to be valuable to them because that is one of their biggest problems. We've just given them something for free and solved one of their biggest problems for free. So when they hop on a sales call with us, they're going to trust us a lot more because we have helped them for free and we have solved one of their biggest problems. But here's the thing. Here's the caveat. The thing that we give away for free, the free value, the free content, it actually has to be good. Because if it's not good, then it doesn't matter if it's free. They're not going to be trusting us because they're not going to be seeing us as the authority. The reason we trust Alex Hormozi or Charlie Morgan or Iman, or like whoever you consume, the reason for that is because their content is actually good. It actually helps us solve the problem. So whatever free value we give our prospects before they even hop on a sales call with us, if it's genuinely good, they're going to trust us a lot more and they're going to see us as the authority, as someone that can actually help them solve their problem. On top of that, if we give them something for free, the psychological bias called reciprocity kicks in, where now that we've given them something, they're going to feel obligated to give something back to us as well, which in this case might be the sale. So if we want a prospect to trust us a lot more, obviously get started with the content game. Content is going to make your prospect, if you have good content, it is the fastest way to build a lot of trust with your prospects. But if you don't want to be spending years and years to build that level of trust, what you can do to instantly build trust with your prospects before they hop on a sales call with you is ask them what their biggest problems are. Ask them what they're trying to get out of this sales call. Once they list out 3, 4, 5 problems, solve one of those problems for free before they even hop on a sales call. Like, do that for them. Solve that for free. Now they trust you a lot more. Now they like you, and they're going to want to reciprocate that goodwill, which again, in this case, might be the sale. So once you do all 3 of these things, once you have already created urgency by showing the prospect or getting the prospect to be a lot more aware around their own problems, showing them the severity of their problems, and showing them the consequences of not solving that problem. Once you've done all 3 of those, you create urgency. Once you show the prospect that your product or service solves every one of their problems, you create value, and your product is now a lot more valuable. And then when you also give them something for free, and now they trust you a lot more, if you combine all 3 of these things before your sales call or on your sales call, there is going to be no reason the prospect throws a price objection at you. I can promise you that because I've been doing the same thing for myself, for my sales calls. I've been uploading my sales calls as well on this channel. So if you haven't watched those, you can watch those after this video. But I've been also doing the same thing with my clients' sales teams as well. Again, my clients tell me to come and build and help their sales team to close a lot more deals. This is exactly what I tell them. This is what they pay me 5, 6, 7, 10K to train their team on. So I promise you this works. Again, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, does this mean that if we do all of these, we're never going to receive the price objection? No, there's going to be some prospects who are just built that way, who are going to throw a price objection no matter what because they live in fear. But if we do all 3 of these things, we're going to significantly reduce our chances of ever getting a price objection. So do all of these things on your next sales call. Let me know how it goes in the comments or Instagram DMs, which is going to be linked in the description right there. I will be making a lot more videos just like this, talking about other objections like think about it or partner or fear or everything else. I will also post a lot of my own sales call recordings so you can see exactly what I do on my sales calls and you can learn what you can do on your sales calls as well. So if you're not subscribed already, scroll down and click on the subscribe button and you're going to be able to watch all of these videos when I release them in the next few weeks. With that being said, have a fantastic day. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.